Thank you, Linda. And thank you again, attendees, guests, speakers, sponsors. We really appreciate your efforts and also your collaboration and connection, which is really key during this time, especially in the time of navigation and reinvention. During this time, though, it can be a very stressful time. Not can be, it has been. So I want to bring in my panel to have a discussion on what mental health awareness, because it is so essential right now. Many of us are still in a virtual capacity. Many of us have not been able to socialize with our loved ones, our friends, and even in our workspaces. Many of us have had to transform throughout this process. But my hope is that we can fill you up today and give you words of encouragement, different ideas, creativity, and inclusiveness as you join this mental health and wellness panel today. So Dr. Dominique Pritchett, Shiviena Crawley, and Melanie Wilson, please unmute yourselves as well as let the audience see your beautiful faces. And I'd like for you to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are, what you do, and how you support individuals in the mental health capacity. Thank you so very much. We will start with Melanie.
Good morning. Good morning. Such an honor to be here. My name is Melanie Wilson, and I am the founder of Show Rise, offering an online 12-week one-to-one intensive coaching program. I help fed up, exhausted women break the chains of anxiety, depression, trauma, fears, limiting beliefs, lies, self-doubt, so that they can flourish in all areas of their lives. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. We appreciate you so much being here. Shiviena?
Good morning, beautiful women. I'm super excited to be here. So, like I said, I'm Shiviena Crawley. I am the owner and founder of Life Imagined Counseling and Consulting, where I help men, women, adolescents to transform their lives, so that they can live the life that was imagined for them, the life that they imagined for themselves. And I've been doing it, since 2015, and I'm really just excited, to help continue to transform lives through gifts of counseling, teaching, and creativity.
Thank you. Wonderful. And thank you for your contribution as well. Dr. Dominique Pritchett, how are you?
I'm great. Good morning, y'all. So as Troy said, my name is Dr. Dominique Pritchett, and I am a licensed therapist, speaker, consultant, and the #1 self-sabotage therapist. I help women and girls identify the causes and rise above the effects of self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors and help them build healthier habits to transform their lives. So as the CEO of Beloved Wellness Center, a private practice in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that's my audience. I love working with women and girls through individual, family, and group therapy services.
Wonderful. So this is so timely. So I am loving this. As a previous mental health clinician that has transitioned into coaching, this is so wonderful and again, timely. Women, we need to take better care of ourselves. Seriously, get your stuff together. And I'm going to be authentic, transparent, and get right with you. Okay. So if you're taking care of everybody else, take this moment, turn off whatever else you got on TV, because I know you're trying to watch this and listen and do something else at the same time. Shut it on down. Give yourself the time that you deserve. So we're going to start with some questions. And again, audience, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the Q&A so that we can differentiate what the questions are and what the chat is. All right? Thank you so very much. So panel, and I will start with Dr. Pritchett. I'm going to call her Dr. Dominique because I just love the flow of that as well. So when should a person understand and know and identify when they are heading down a lane that's not healthy for them?
Mhm. Yeah. That's a great question. And that's typically when a lot of people start considering, do I need therapy? What's wrong with me? So you hear them start asking themselves those questions. So I like to look at it on the stages of change. Sometimes people aren't ready to acknowledge or admit that, hey, something's going on with me. But when they start reaching that stage of contemplation, like, who, okay, that don't feel good. I'm getting feedback from all these people saying, girl, your attitude stank.
Yeah.
But a lot of times that's misinterpreted resilience or misinterpreted stories. We never know someone's story. So how do you know you're headed down an unwanted or unhealthy path? You start doing things that are out of the norm for you. Maybe you start calling into work. If you're a parent, you tell your kids, go fix cereal. Okay, they can eat cereal only so many days a week. So you kind of deviate from your daily routine. Physically, you start feeling a little bit heavier, a little bit weighed down, not getting out of bed. Maybe going back to past traumas can put a person down an unwanted or unhealthy path. So it's important that we look at that path holistically. What has changed and what is being impacted mental, spiritual, physically, social, relational, environmentally. So if we can pull things from those areas to say, I don't feel like I'm winning in life. I don't feel like I am going forward, but I'm going backwards. Those are some of the things that start to come forward, and the person say, maybe I should go see somebody.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned the stages of change, right? So, can we just highlight that really, really quickly on what those stages are? Those 5 stages of change are.
Yep. So the stages of change, and it's so funny, I was just teaching my class this the other day, and it starts, and some people have added others in there, but it starts with pre-contemplation, and that pre-contemplation phase is kind of the denial phase. You're like, ain't nothing wrong with me, y'all just, bothering me. So a person is definitely not ready to acknowledge that they may need support. And keep in mind, when we look at changing behaviors, it can be with addiction, it can be with relationships, it can be with so many things, mental health. So pre-contemplation is you're not even there yet, and that's okay. I welcome people where they are. Contemplation is you're like, okay, I'm starting to see some things, I'm starting to feel some things, but then you get into that phase where you're like, okay, maybe I need to do something about that. So you start preparing to seek help. You start opening up a little bit more, or sometimes it's not even on your own dime that you're reaching out for help. Some people may be put into a hospital or had a family intervention. So you start preparing phase, but that action phase is when you are in it, you're committed, and it's not always pretty. Then you have that maintenance stage of like, okay, I'm maintaining, doing my self-help, going to my groups, going to church, hanging out with my girls, doing what I need to do to not go back to that stage that was not so pleasant or healthy. But a lot of times when people are changing their behaviors, they may slip up. We call it relapse. And a lot of times you hear that with addiction, but it can go across anything, especially, if you just got over a breakup, think about how breakup fits in that. And you didn't call and text them and showed up at the person's house, so you can relapse through anything. But that stage of change is always flowing. And our goal is to get to a point of recovery and maintenance where we are self-sufficient, empowered, and living the life we desire.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, audience, 5 stages of change. Make sure you write this down, okay? Pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Very, very important for you to understand and identify when you are in those phases and what stages you're in. You do it when you work out, right? When you get ready to, you're saying, oh, I want to work out, but I'm not working out, and you're not quite there yet. So think about that process, because that is, if you create and understand your plan, then you can navigate through barriers, right? And you are prepared, and you become so much more healthier. So we've got some other great questions. Melanie, what about this toxic talk? Talk to me about what this toxic talk thing is. And because you heard Dr. Dominique, right? So there are things that we do to ourselves that contribute and impact us. So tell us more about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that she tied the relapse into so many other things because it doesn't only apply to addiction. But when we're talking about toxic talk, what we believe about ourselves stems from childhood and life experiences. And we typically develop both distorted thinking and dysfunctional behaviors as a result. Toxic talk is an example of that. And it is rooted in negative core beliefs. Some examples of toxic talk that may run through our minds is helpless, vulnerable, bad, defective, inadequate, unimportant, unlovable, inferior. And as we grant permission for that style of talk to race through our minds, it can be detrimental to us because it manifests in our behaviors and can send us spiraling into a state of depression and darkness. So becoming aware of the talk, that trash, that head trash that I refer to, that's on replay through our minds is really important, because as a certified CBT practitioner, cognitive behavior therapy, we're taking these cognitive distortions, we're capturing them, and we're working through the process. Capture the thought. What are the emotions that are triggered, and what are the default behaviors that we find ourselves going to as a result of granting permission to the toxic talk and the negative core beliefs that are running through our mind? We can move past that, but it is a practice, and it takes diligent, consistent, and obedient action to overcome that. But like Dr. Dominique referenced, there's always the potential for relapse. And I'm sure everyone on the panel, as well as all of those beautiful women in our audience, can say at some point, maybe even in this moment, toxic talk is running through our mind. It's okay, it's normal, but how we react or respond is what differentiates us from living the life we're called to live, or staying stuck in that heaviness, that darkness is, and that's not where we belong.
Excellent. And you are spot on, Melanie. But you know what I tell my clients is take a breath. You must breathe, right? We have to allow people, like when people say, "Oh, just breathe," that's a for real thing, right? That's a for real thing.
It
Right?
is, it
You have
is.
to, breathing allows oxygen to get to your brain and allows you to now recycle a pattern of thinking,
Mhm.
right? It gives you that moment and the step back that you can allow yourself to, you heard her say, respond. Because a lot of us are in that space of
Mhm.
reacting, right? So, but when you can breathe, and now you can also, right, exhale, right, and push some of that stress out, it allows you to regroup. So, Shiviena, listen, we've got the stages of change. We've got reacting and responding, right? So talk to us about these self-defeating habits.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So the self-defeating habits, or it's like a defense mechanism. We are convinced that our behavior, or our way of responding to the situation, is what's best for us. So we react in a way of like self-protectiveness to protect ourselves. So some common self-defeating behaviors or beliefs that I see, day to day, not just in my practice, but sometimes in myself and other people, is so a refusal to ask for help, or refusal to, admit that help is needed, or accepting help. In our culture, we're very individualistic, and we believe that, okay, well, if I have to ask for help, then it means that I'm weak. Or if I have to accept help, then it means that I'm insufficient, or that, I can't do it on my own. When really, you may be able like to do it on your own, but you don't have to do it on your own. There's a difference. There's a huge difference in that. I don't know any successful, business, any successful entrepreneur, ministry, that functions on its own. It may function, but is it functioning well? So just understanding that it's more than okay. It's necessary to partner with people. It's necessary to receive, help, guidance, coaching, things like that from people. A second one is, so not carrying out tasks, not carrying out, duties or responsibilities. So maybe starting things, but not finishing. And as, you know, Dr. Dominique pointed out, you know, that whole model of change, right? And the lapse. And I want to point out, there's a difference also between relapse and lapse. You know, a relapse is, okay, you fall off the horse and then, you know, repetitively, right? So once you fall off, you know, you're off for an extended period of time. But it's important to recognize that a lapse, you know, is like, okay, I fell off, but, you know, I know what it takes to get back on track. You know, not only do I know what it takes, but I'm going to work my steps. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to partner with people, you know, so just understanding that, you know, if we are setting our intentions to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I am, you know, I'm going to take this next step. I am going to launch my business. I am going to, you know, end this toxic relationship. I am going to, you know, partner with people who are good for me, right? So following through with that, you know, following through with what our intentions are and really being led by our values. You know, I teach people to lead by their values, like what's important to you, you know, what matters most, okay? And then avoiding risks. A third one is like avoiding risks or new activities. Mostly, you know, sometimes due to like fear of failure, due to fear of success, or just, you know, due to fear of embarrassment. But, you know, I think that it's super important to affirm for ourselves that it's more than okay to make mistakes. It's more than okay to quote unquote fail. And I say fail because I don't look at failure as, you know, as, okay, this is the end all be all, but as an opportunity to learn and say, okay, well, you know what, that didn't turn out the way that I desired it to. However, you know, let me pivot, let me do something differently. Let me see what needs to change, you know, so that I can, you know, make it a reality. So just, you know, understanding that,
Wonderful.
hey, it's okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now,
Mhm.
so this is the thing. Many of us get caught up and we don't even recognize our behaviors. We have these values, we have belief systems, and we pretty much feel like, you know, I'm like for myself, right? So I know I'm fine, fierce, and fabulous, like all of you, right? Come on now. But this is the thing. We also become overwhelmed, even if it's not externally. So I don't self identify with myself. I don't even say the word. I refuse to say I'm overwhelmed, right? Because I feel like it's a self fulfilled prophecy. But I also recognized that through the years that by me not saying it, I was also not acknowledging it, which also became detrimental. And my body started to respond to internal stress. So, ladies, can we speak to that? Because I know that there are women in the audience who are hamsters on the wheel, and they get up and they are in those cycles and they go 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 do. Can you give just some brief tips on the awareness of that cycle and acknowledging and that um, giving grace in that process as well? Melanie?
Take this. So before any behavior change can happen, we must first be willing to work on changing our thought life. So our thoughts then become our actions, and they're all driven by emotions. And that dysfunctional behavior pattern, and Shiviena had mentioned the avoidance, like that's an unhealthy behavior that we will implement to protect ourselves. And avoiding actually prohibits learning experiences where we get to test and gather evidence to prove or disprove these core beliefs. So when we're stuck in these cycles, and Troy, you had mentioned overwhelm, you know, the behavior modification is something that I want to see happen, but I'm going to work on the thought life in my clients. And the behavior modification is just a beautiful byproduct of that. One of those things is how we state our emotions. When you say, I am overwhelmed, you're taking ownership of it. You're allowing it to define you. And that thought then generates these emotions of fear of failure, not capable, insufficient, inferior, lacking, not worthy, all of those things. And then as a result, these behaviors will keep us stuck in that pattern. We're emotionally driven and we are reactive. What we want to do is be able to recognize that I feel overwhelmed. You capture that word and then branch off of that. What is causing you to feel overwhelmed, and identify those things? Because once you identify, then you can acknowledge and then go to work on changing. And that's when we can create a strategic plan to focus in on goals to make changes in our thinking and our behavior patterns. The cognitive distortion says, I am overwhelmed. When we reframe that to something that is healthy, it's coming from a nourished mindset, and we say, I feel overwhelmed. Now we can pause, we can process, and we can respond. If we choose to allow that to identify and define us, then we're reactive. We're not thinking rationally, and our behaviors will support that negative, dysfunctional thought process and keep us stuck in that I am overwhelmed type of space. And that's unhealthy, but we can move through that and get to the other side of that.
All right. Shiviena?
Yeah, I love so much how Melanie pointed out the differentiation between, our identity and, our emotions, right? And what I teach also is differentiating between like our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors. So if we attach our identity to, to, let's say, being overwhelmed or being stressed, then, then it becomes, our expectations. I expect, because I am overwhelmed or because I am depression, then I expect to always be depressed, right? So I really love that differentiation there. And, so we talked about being self-aware, self-exploration as well. What are the things that, that cause me to feel or that contribute to me feeling overwhelmed, for example, what are my strengths? What resources do I have to help shift my mood, to help shift my perspective, right? Just reframing, the situation is super, super, super powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Dr. Dominique, you're going to have a double whammy. So, you're going to have that, but I also want you to talk about how to free your ego, right? Because that's part of what I'm talking about here, right? That introspection. Y'all need to write that down. Introspection piece of that. So, as you talk about, give your highlight on answering that, just filter that right into how to free your ego.
We're on some kind of wavelength, because I was like, let me jump in. I got some stuff to say about that. And Ms. Crawley and Melanie, y'all are right on. And, just to emphasize what they're talking about is the thoughts, feelings, and action cycle. So if you think of it on a triangle, you can put whatever letter you want. You got the T, you got the F, you got the A. And part of that thoughts, feelings, and actions triangle is that you have the ability to slow that down. So say like you're having a negative thought, such as all or nothing, either I'm a success or I'm a failure, or they probably think I'm a loser or whatever. You've already manifested, one way or another. So take a step back and say, I am capable. I am able to. But if that thinking kind of gets away from you, you get to the feeling stage, a sense of overwhelm versus I am. There's a sense of it, address those feelings. But when we start letting that cycle get out of control, then we probably acting it out, which is our behaviors. But acting it out, that's okay that you got there. So you have a lot of points on that triangle where you can cut it off before it spirals.
Excellent.
But in terms of talking about the ego, so I want you all to think of the ego as your ideas, your beliefs, and your patterns, AKA our personality. And I think it was Ms. Crawley who talked about identity. So that's only part of us, our ego. People talk about your ego too big. Let your ego be big once you get it under control and you snatch those edges of your ego. That's okay. Do too much. So
I'm not going to speak on that.
Go ahead. Oh, you know. So when we think of our ideas, our beliefs, and our patterns, AKA our personality, a lot of that stuff is generational. a lot of that stuff is compound generational strongholds, things that we were introduced to us. So to keep my thoughts organized and to give you all an immediate takeaway, I love actionable things. I want you to think of building and growing through your ideas, your beliefs, and your patterns that have kept you stuck. So you're hearing that word too, stuck. Think of grow, Grow. The first thing you can do to bring awareness and start freeing yourself from some of those unwanted things that mama and grandmama and them gave you, you like, I don't even like that part of me, is G. Gain an understanding of what ideas, beliefs, and patterns are you benefiting from and that you're not benefiting from. Boost that understanding so you know which ones are yours and which ones you got from mama and them. You know, we sisters now, mama and them, okay? And when you start asking yourself those questions, you get to see what's aligned with you and what's not. We have got to do that introspection and take some ownership of what's happening to us. Do they feel good? Are they hurting me? Are they hurting other people? So that G is gain an understanding. R, recognize your habits and increase that awareness. Open your eyes. Stop going in a narrow lane. Open your eyes and look around you. Building that awareness of those ideas, beliefs, and patterns that are causing you to question parts of yourself that may lead you to go back to therapy. See, it's coming full circle. But also, you know, not all feedback is bad feedback. Folks may not deliver it in a way that you like, but be open to hear, okay, now she a third person who said, I'm acting a fool, or, I'm causing, contributing to this happening. So be open to the feedback others people give. I always say, take what you need and leave what you don't, but consider it. So that feedback can be very helpful. So when I nurture the stories and lives of my clients, I enjoy getting them to the point where they can start releasing those statements and those habits and just be them, learn them. So, be open to reflect, having an openness to identify what are your strengths and limitations of your ideas, and beliefs, and patterns. It's a great time to start looking at the root causes, trying different self-help books, therapy, schedule with your pastor, and with COVID, we got to get creative right now. So create a new routine, starting with that thought process. And my last one of that grow method is W, welcome new changes. So often in Black and brown communities, I can speak as, a Black woman, we were taught what happens in this house stays in this house. Don't let those secrets get out. In my house, the only secret is what you're getting for Christmas. Okay. So with that welcoming new changes, that's where you get to reflect and start that journey of growth, going back to that cycle of change. Find that inner positive self, put a voice to it, put a name to it, address them as they come up, because just when you slay in the day, that stuff you put behind you, you're like, oh, where'd that come from? And
you are so right. It's like when you pray for patience, right? And the Lord sends that person right in front of you that's going to test your patience. And you're like, you know what? I thought they were on vacation this week.
No, they're right there.
Right? So listen, in your growth, grow, right? So understand how we still have stages, we still have steps, we still have opportunities, right? And options. So that's the creative part about being. There are options, right? We are not, you hear people say, well, this is the way I am, this is how I'm going to be, and this is how you have to take me. No, you don't. No, you don't. Stop that. If you are one of those people and you're an audience member listening in, I'm going to tell you right now, stop it. Check this, because sometimes I got to check myself at the door. Check yourself at the door, right? Have a moment and recognize that your energy has tentacles and can touch other things and other beings, right? So if you truly want to be fulfilled, spirit-led, hopeful, inspirational, all those things, then you have to exude that. It can't just be in your inner core. It's got to be in your outer core as well. So we talked about, and I've heard this word several times from the three of you, belief systems. Now I need you to compress because we're running into time, because I want to give the audience some time to be able to ask questions. And I have several more questions for you. So let's talk about belief systems, right? So I heard you all reference that, but can we just dig a little deeper into belief systems and how they contribute to our behaviors? Let's start with you, Shiviena.
Yeah, absolutely. I am noticing that core thread as well. So, limiting beliefs or belief systems in general, every belief is formed from experiences. And it's either from our own experiences or the experiences of others who have influence on our lives. Usually, we pass down positive or negative beliefs or pass over positive or negative beliefs. But the beliefs that we want to focus on, that I want to focus on today, are those limiting beliefs or that are usually formed out of hurtful situations or hurtful experiences. So, they can manifest as, I can't do much about my life. I am powerless, I'm helpless, right? I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough, right? Nothing that I do prospers. Good things just don't happen to me, okay? And I really love, so I'm going to have to, catch the replay and catch that acronym for GROW. I really love that. But I teach, coming out of agreement with negative beliefs or coming out of agreement with, those limiting beliefs. Any beliefs, if we speak things or if we believe something, and beliefs are like thoughts, opinions, judgments, views, okay, all of those. When you hear me say beliefs, I mean like our view, our judgments, right? So we have adopted these things to be our truth. We've said that these are the absolutes. Okay. And so what we have to do in order to, before we even begin developing newer, healthier beliefs, we have to tear down these beliefs. We have to understand the connection that these beliefs have on our emotions and how they have the connection that it has to like our actions and our behaviors as well. So if you don't remember anything else today, identify those limiting beliefs and do the work to come out of agreement with it. And it could just be to say, what, I recognize this as a limiting belief and I refuse to accept it anymore. I reject the belief that I'm not good enough.
Excellent. Dr. Dominique?
Yes, being respectful to you all's times. I totally agree. I look at the causes and effects of self-sabotaging because that contributes to our limiting beliefs. Some of those causes, we've covered a number of them: trauma, microaggressions, minimizing your greatness, having your childhood stolen, and that's called parentification. So now you're struggling with relationships. Those are some of the causes. But when we look at the effects, that's where we start to see that imposter syndrome come up, getting in your own way, diminishing your talents, gifts, beliefs. And that kind of erodes at your self-esteem and your confidence. So you got to take it as a whole package. It's just stuff. What do you want to do with it?
Excellent. Excellent. And there's something in there I want to come back to. So I'm not going to reference it right now, but because I want to hear from Melanie. Melanie?
Oh, this is fantastic. I needed to hang on to that. I reject that belief and then fill in the blank. Like, that's huge. With the acronym FEAR, face, engage, acknowledge, release. That's what I walk my clients through when it comes to core beliefs. We need to face them. Let's uncover and figure out what they are. Then when we do that, let's engage. Let's gather evidence that can support or gather evidence that's going to disprove. These core beliefs come from childhood experiences, life experiences, and sometimes, like Shiviena mentioned, it may not even be our own personal experiences, but the experiences of those who have the power to influence us. And then we need to acknowledge when it is a flat out lie, when we've taken ownership of something we have no business taking ownership of, let's acknowledge it and then strategize to release it. Core beliefs should be healthy. Core beliefs should be rooted in truth. The truth that comes from who you are and whose you are, where you are embracing and leveraging and sharing those gifts and talents, not stuffing them in a box, putting them up on the shelf because somebody else says you're not good enough. And you've put on that cape of someone else's identity instead of walking in your own and embracing whose you are so that you can rise up strong, shut down this crap that's running through your mind and go to work on what you're called to do.
Woo! Did y'all hear that? Like, there's a lot of greatness coming out here. My ladies are on point. I hope you all are taking notes. Listen, get your journals. If you don't have one, get it out and make sure you're taking notes. So listen, I heard this imposter syndrome pop up, right? And that is these self-fulfilling beliefs. I work with a lot of um, entrepreneurs and helping to them to emerge, start, pivot in their businesses. You know, some of them are saying, you know what, I just want to do good in the world, and I want to provide a service or a product, and that's great, but you're starving, right? You starving. So, and then it's helping them to be able to pivot, but they also feel like they're living in this imposter syndrome, right? Oftentimes. And I know oftentimes that's the mindset. So we have to work on that. We have to be able to transition that mindset. But the imposter syndrome, so many of us have put this label on how we're living and what we're living in, rather than being able to spin it and saying, that's us navigating through our growth process, right? That we would rather define it in a negative way as an imposter, and we're being something that we are not. So speak to that really, because I'm sure there are some individuals in their careers, in their businesses, even in their homes, right, that feel like I don't measure, I don't measure up, right, in comparison to Sally, you know, and all these other people. Let's speak to that. Melanie, can you give us some feedback on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. The imposter syndrome is really rooted in that scarcity mindset where those core beliefs that are negative, that distorted thinking, the cognitive distortions exist. Like that's a breeding ground, a petri dish for all that garbage, right? So when we think about imposter syndrome, we are not able to step into the space where we can say, I am capable, I am enough, I can do these things, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And when we start to pull from truth, then all of a sudden we snuff out that imposter syndrome. It can't exist when we are operating from a place of abundancy, a nourished mindset, and we are rooted in truth. It's not possible. You can't think negative and positive at the same time. You can have a negative thought, then move to a positive thought, but they cannot coexist. Imposter syndrome, and we all suffer from it. For me, when it starts to rear its ugly head, that's when I realize there is still work from the trauma and stuff that I have experienced that needs to be done. So when it shows up, instead of me running from it or going to the unhealthy coping mechanisms of avoidance and self-medicating and those types of things, I say, okay, fear is here. We're going to face it. We're going to engage. We're going to acknowledge, and we're going to release it. What do I need to learn from what is being revealed to me in this moment? Instead of saying, why me? I say, how, God, do you want me to use this? What am I to learn from this? There is purpose pain. And that purpose pain is the pain that is pressing you to get uncomfortable so that you can reveal the sweet stuff, your secret sauce, your gifts and talents, so that you can embrace them. You shut the imposter syndrome down and you step into walking the life that was designed for you. You are walking your purpose. You are making an impact as a result.
Wonderful. Dr. Dominique.
We having church, we having a conference, we got a little bit of I'm full right now. These are ladies I can rock with every day. So I definitely agree with that. And even going back to, I think you said it eloquently, whose is who, giving people their stuff back. That is a conscious act of coping, having conversations with folks of like, I took this on because I thought I needed to protect it for you, but in fact, it was hurting me. It was part of that pain I was going through, but it ain't no longer my purpose to protect it for you. So having conscious, active conversations with people to give them their stuff back gives you freedom and space to release yourself from that cape. I'm going live in a few weeks of releasing yourself from that cape. It is okay not to be strong. It is okay not to carry everybody's burden. But until you get to that root cause, spend that time with yourself, that ugly crying time, it's going to be very hard to navigate what's for you and what ain't for you.
Dr. Dominique, whoo, y'all are saying a mouthful, right? So this is the thing. Understand, because we teach people how to treat us, for sure.
We give them permission.
Yes, we do. Shiviena, let's hear from you.
Oh my goodness, I love, like, absolutely love this part. I'll just add to that, like anytime it rears its ugly head, that fear or that self-doubt, right? When we look at in original language, like in Hebrew, whatever. So if we look at fear, it's basically to take flight or to run away, right? To take flight, to run away. So instead of taking flight and running away, okay, lean into it. Okay, I'm afraid that, they're going to see that I don't measure up. Whatever the fear is, lean into it, and recognize that you're not there, because of, because they just doing you a favor. You're there because you deserve to be there. You're there because you belong there. So do it afraid, do it anyway, show up anyway, and then also just lean into, nurture your inner child, nurture your inner child.
I love that.
Yourself that, what, like we talked about rejecting that lie. Okay, here this lie is again showing up, right? So instead of getting mad with this lie, I'm going to respond to my inner child. I'm going to pour into my inner child, and just like I would with a baby, right? I'm going to be kind to my inner child. I'm going to love on my inner child. I'm going to affirm my inner child and say, you know what? I know you're afraid. Just like with our own kids, we don't say, okay, stop it, stop being afraid, right? Hopefully we're not, So instead of taking that approach, okay, I know you're afraid, you can handle this though, you can do hard things, and not overestimating the risk and underestimating ourselves. Show up, show up, show up, show up anyway, and just really pour into your inner child.
I love that. Listen, it's something that we all need to recognize in ourselves, that we are not perfect. It you and it's okay not to live in perfection either. You can live in excellence, right? Because you're of your standards, right? But when we are striving for perfection, we get into analysis paralysis, and oftentimes it can be a stronghold as well. So recognize that, and also recognize this. What is what's that saying? Ladies, help me out. It is, what's good to you is not always good for you. Who's in your tribe? Who are you? Who have you surrounded yourself with? What are you watching? What are you turning? What's on the TV at night when you go to bed? What's on the TV in the morning when you? What's in your ear? What's filtering in? In your presence, right? In your surroundings, in your environment, because all of that plays a part in your mental health. So, so we go through these phases, right? And we go through these stages, and we recognize that we need more help. We need more assistance. Dr. Dominique, when is that time?
That time can be any time. And one thing to keep in mind is that everybody's wellness journey or mental health challenges look very different. So often we're told, because we show the world this facade that we can do anything, which we can. However, make sure you're doing that anything well, and well-minded. So you can go and seek services at any time. They look different for everyone because your experiences are different. I have clients that come to me when they're kind of like, hey, I got this test coming up. Great, let's do some mindful work to get you so grounded. There is no judgment that comes up when fear enters the room. You say, come on, fear. You finna sit right here and take this test with me. And as Ms. Crawley said, do it afraid. So keep that in mind. Everybody's wellness journey looks differently. There are so many things you can do. Don't ever let nobody tell you there's only one way. Even as a clinician, I would be remiss if I just said therapy was the only way. We have got to start shattering stigma, that self-stigma we give ourselves, that,
Yes.
oh, I am crazy. I am this. No, you are stuck. You are in need of love and support, and you deserve self-compassion.
Yes. Yes. So listen, while I'm asking these last few questions, can you all just blow up the Q&A? So because you're going to have time to interact and engage and connect with this fearless panel, right? They are dropping some nuggets on you today. So Shiviena, you know, when we talk about getting to that point What are the mental breaks we should be taking?
Man, yeah. So, mental breaks, like how we talked about, self-aware, right? Self-exploration, self-knowledge, just, wanting to grow. None of us are, should be above like learning and growing, right? And so therapy may not be for everyone, which I believe that it is, right? And so whether it's therapy, whether it's consulting, whether it's coaching, and just really recognizing the benefits of it, So leaning into, what, I want to just go and grow. I want to grow in anything. Okay. So we don't have to just show up when something is wrong, but when everything is going right. I want to keep all of these things going right. So I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to go talk to a coach, or I'm going to go talk to a consultant. I'm going to go talk to my pastor, or just somebody else who's healthy in their mind and healthy in their actions, in their, in their emotions as well. So just making the conscious decision to continue growing and developing and sharpening your tools.
Wonderful. Melanie?
I wanted to kind of speak to that point as well. It's unfortunate that we wait until it's too heavy, it's too much, and we're on the verge of a breakdown to ask for, invite in, and accept help. Be willing to do that when you are in a good headspace, when you feel emotionally stable, because you can leverage what you're doing well and continue that. When it comes to mental breaks, I think, this is really important because it promotes the connection with self. And what I like to see my clients do during these healthy mental breaks is start to build your truth list. This truth list needs to be easily accessible. Make it your screensaver, post it on your refrigerator. The places that you go to escape, have this truth list there, like a nourishment menu. It will help you to counteract, to challenge, and move forward as you are building self-confidence, self-esteem, and recognizing how worthy you truly are. When we are in those dark, heavy, overwhelming moments, the only thing that we can find is evidence to support being in those dark, heavy, overwhelming moments. So taking time to have mental breaks to build that truth list. When it feels like it's too much, you pull that truth list out. You stand in the mirror, you look that girl in the eye, and you speak that over her to get you strong, bold, and courageous to take the next step forward, make the next right decision. And that could be reaching out for help, whatever that may look like for you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. This conversation has been really so key. There's been a lot of nuggets that have been thrown out in this conversation, and I hope that you all are really taking the opportunity to engage in not just the conversation, but the context, right? The context. And then once you take this context, see how it applies to you. I see the chat box blowing up, y'all. I don't know if you all can see it, but the audience is on fire. They are taking notes, writing things down. So I'm a firm believer: education, information, education, implementation, and action, right? Those four things are so key in my life. And I help people to be able to navigate through that when they are in transition, leading into a transformation. So I'm going to ask something personal of you all. And I know you weren't, this wasn't a question that was prepared or anything, but how have each of you, very succinctly and very quickly, gone through a transformation, and what did you learn? We'll start with you, Dr. Dominique.
Thank you so much. The biggest transformation in my life was being homeless off and on to the day I turned 18 and went to college. Even on that first day, I tried to kill myself because the sense of freedom was so overwhelming, and I didn't know what trauma was that I brought into campus. So that's the biggest in a nutshell where I started. But the transformation has been getting to know myself, shedding myself from all the stereotypes, the stigma, and the misconceptions of people who people thought I was. and being introduced to the power of therapy, which is why I decided to become a therapist. A social worker reached out to me and said, I want to help you. And I looked at her and said, girl, what do you want from me and how much is it going to cost? Or do I have to do anything indecent? So, my testimony is not a pretty one. And I thank God I don't look like the hell I have been through. So that transformation has brought me full circle in believing in the power of healing and wellness. And I encourage everyone to get to know yourself. Is no relationship like you'll ever experience again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your journey as well. Because listen, folks, look what God has blessed us with, right? And Dr. Dominique. Melanie?
Wow, that was powerful. I love your, like, in a nutshell. It's challenging sometimes to communicate all of this. What I have learned is that trauma does not get to control me. It does not get to define me. What I have experienced does not make me who I am. It may be part of what shaped me, but when I hit that rock bottom where the self-medicating, the opioid addiction, the abusing my body no longer worked, and God said, girl, it's time. You need to look up. You need to rise up. That's what motivated me to do the work that I have done to develop the program that I have, because there was a void. I didn't want to go and simply talk. I needed action that I could implement in my life to continue healing, recovering, overcoming, and rising up strong. What I have learned is that the avoidance, the isolation, and the hiding does not do any good for me, nor does it do any good for any of those who are listening. We have to be willing to speak up to end the stigma. We have to go to the right people, seek out wise counsel to help us work through these things so that we can break free. I am now doing that in my own life because I'm a walking testimony to what this process does, but I'm helping other women to do that too. Sharing my fearlessly authentic self, the raw version of my story, is what has helped countless women see what is capable in their own story. I am recovering. I am healing. I am overcoming. I am choosing to rise up strong every single day in my life as a result of what I have experienced. And God's glory is no longer being blocked by my flesh saying no one should hear this because, or what if, or I should have. God is using my story to reach other women, and I am open and postured for obedience to share it authentically.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Shiviena?
My goodness, right. For the sake of time, I'll just say one thing that really was a stumbling block for me was the belief, or what I'll say, call it what it is, the lie that my worth and my value was dependent on the love of other people, or or even my accomplishments, and I recognize that as a lie today, but for so many years, I just really believed that my worth, my value dependent on, other people's approval, dependent on how many, A's I got in school, or how many perfect scores I got on tests, and how many degrees and all of those things, can I earn? So thank God today, I no longer subscribe to those beliefs, and the part of the transformation, what I've learned through that is that I am inherently enough, period.
Oh, I am enough.
Yes.
Come on now. For real. So we have a question in the chat box, and the question is, when we give into our unhealthy coping mechanism, what does that say to where we are in our healing journey? Shiviena, I'm going to start with you. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was saying that that's just a really great question. And I believe that what we were sharing earlier about relapse and lapse, right? So, anytime you notice that you are going back to those, unhealthy or unhelpful, coping mechanisms, remind yourself, that that you have overcome it before. And because you've overcome it before, you can overcome it again. Everything can be learned. Everything can be learned. And there are times when transformation is instantaneously, and then there are times when it's a process. So don't negate the process. Don't throw the whole, journey away or success away just because, you've had a lapse. All right. Celebrate, the progress that you have made so far, and then say, okay, what tweaks do I need to make? Why is this defense mechanism, why am I still defaulting to this? And remind yourself that you've functioned that way for so long. So it's natural, it's common that you're going to lapse back to that because it's been your default for so long. Okay. So stick with it, give yourself grace, and affirm for yourself that lapse is part of the process. It's part of the recovery process, the transformation process.
Wonderful. Dr. Dominique?
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I was jotting my thoughts down because, when you're on a panel, the thoughts come rushing. There's so much you want to say. But the first thing, pause, or even wait. Use the acronym WAIT. Why am I talking? Just pause, quiet your mind, and recognize you are human. Because sometimes we put these unrealistic, supernatural beliefs that we are going to change overnight. And as Ms. Crawley just said, that transformational process, there is no timeline. There is no guarantee that it will look a certain way. Come back to the present and be mindful enough to experience even the good, the ugly without judgment.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. Melanie, briefly?
Well, you didn't get to where you are overnight. So you're certainly not going to get to where you want to be overnight either. When that negative, unhealthy coping mechanism resurfaces, it's revealing to you that there's still work to be done. We have to recognize that triggers will always exist, but how we respond is what changes. And if you're still using an unhealthy coping mechanism, that's okay. Let's celebrate the fact that you're acknowledging you are doing that, because now that you have acknowledged it, we can go to work and change it. You don't have to stay there anymore.
Yes.
Can I add one more thing,
Yes.
Troy?
Yep.
There's usually one panelist that just gets out of line.
No, all of y'all been out of line. Go ahead. But guess what? I'm not asking you to stay in line either. So
hey, we got a lot to share.
Successful staying in line.
There you go. So while you are celebrating where you are, recognize that we have the resiliency capacity, we have the agency, we have the resources, because as you said, we've kind of been there before. Tap into that reservoir of resilience. Just when we think it's dried up to keep going, there's a few drops left until you replenish it.
Wonderful. So if there's no other questions from our audience, I'd like us to wrap up, and I would really like for you to just take 30 seconds. Y'all hear me? 30 seconds. 30 seconds. All right, stop playing. 30 seconds, because I heard Shiviena say the word celebrate. In your parting words with our audience, how can one celebrate themselves? Okay. Melanie, we'll start with you.
I'm still stuck on the 30 seconds thing. What? You know what? When it comes to celebrating, I think what we need to recognize is that our accomplishments, our successes, our progress is not always social media worthy. It's not always big stage, big audience worthy. It may be you getting up one morning, brushing your teeth, washing your face and hands, going downstairs and making a cup of coffee and enjoying that cup of coffee. And it may be you doing that 3 times over the next 7 days. That is significant. Recognize the significance in the small steps and celebrate those things, because that's how we build the motivation to sustain the effort to keep going. So no matter how small and insignificant you may think it is, that is crap. Got it? That is crap. That is what I would refer to as shit. Stuff hindering individual transformation. celebrate those small things because it is significant and you need to be able to recognize that to sustain the effort to keep going.
Okay. Shiviena?
I will say whatever your love language is. If it's physical touch, give yourself a hug. Give yourself a pat on the back. If it's words of affirmation, speak kind to yourself. I think that that's something that we should do anyway. Even if it's not our natural love language, just speaking kindly to ourselves. If it's gifts, right? Giving yourself a little sticker. It doesn't have to be anything that you spend tons of money on. Whatever your love language is, you can celebrate yourself that way.
Wonderful. Dr. Dominique?
Two things to do, one to do and one not to do. When you're celebrating, be mindful that what you're celebrating does not contradict why you're celebrating. That can cause a slip or lapse, relapse, whatever you want to call it. So just be mindful of that. But also when you are celebrating, be in the moment and focus on that day and do whatever you want to do to celebrate you.
Wonderful. I love that because I'm always telling my clients, be where you are for the time that you are there. Be in that moment. Be in that present. They're like, how you got 3 kids, you got 2 businesses, you build businesses, you do mental health work, you do coaching. And I'm like, because I compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be everything to everybody, but I can be good and I can be great and with where I am for that time. I have one last question from the audience, and they want to know, how do they send love offerings for all of your wisdom and nuggets? So Linda has told me that you can share, drop your Cash App. And do you want them to share it in the chat, Linda? So someone's wanting to give you all a love offering.
Definitely don't have to. My love offering would come through as a testimony for you to openly share that experience, because through your words, they're going to find out about this conference and I want to connect with y'all. Show me love through that.
Okay. But listen, if you want to do it in your way, Sophia, the way that you wanted to do it, right? Okay. I get the way that she said she could receive it, but the way that you want to do it, right? So they will take and they will drop their information for Cash App in the chat box. And if they don't, I'll put mine in there if they don't want to put theirs in there, right? Because I believe in capitalism in a socially responsible way, for real.
When
right?
you put it like that.
So I can help other folks, right? So I'm a firm believer in teaching people how to fish, right? And also paying it forward, right? So Sophia, thank you so much for just extending that. However they wish to take the love offering, they will receive it. But thank you so much for offering. They want to also know how they can connect with you. So panelists, if you could please put your information in the chat, that would be great, how they can connect with you. Wow, I'm just in so much, there's so much I could say and more I could say. But listen, folks, you all had an opportunity to really chime in on some key information and some key nuggets. So, be mindful of what the panelists have shared, what they have conveyed, and the way that they have conveyed it with sensitivity, with love, right? Because we feel like we can't care for people that we don't know. Not at all. I can tell you, and I don't know these panelists personally, but I can feel in my heart, I can feel the spirit of their love come through. And when you can feel that, right, that is inspiring. It's motivational. It's also peace. This is the kind of peace that you want to exude and have come into your life. You want to have these kind of uplifting conversations, not what is it? Drama with a comma? because some of us have that in our lives, and you need to be able to check that at the door. And if you're constantly engaging in that, in relationships, wherever you are, whether it's home, work, wherever you are, you need to recognize that it's not healthy. So the question for you is, in 2021, how do you become a better you for you? Panelists, Dr. Dominique, Melanie, Shiviena, I thank you so very much. We are moving on to our keynote speaker, and we appreciate you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you all.